Hello everyone and welcome to the Wicked Weekly. My name's Brian if you happen to be new around here, and some of you guys have lovingly coined the phrase the Wicked Daily, as I like to bring you guys all the latest and breaking news about No Rest for the Wicked. So we've got a little bit of that to jump into today. In fact, special thank you and shout out to Lombrix sending me a message of a couple of different, I think, highly important messages from Thomas regarding some of the changes, because like we talked about with the fast travel, like we're talking about as we barrel into patch number 1, there is some really cool and exciting changes, but change does cause a little bit of pushback, and Thomas goes to clarify, and personally speaking, he's hitting the nail on the head. I never want the devs to give me anything for free. I really do enjoy games that I need to grind and earn various different things, and not to tease it too much, but he goes into that, especially when it comes to what it means to have fast travel and more of that open up in the game itself. We're going to go through all of that, and again, thank you to Lombrix. Today, we're going to open the show with a focus in on what Thomas is sharing over here on X, and then we're going to dive into the news and what he's sharing on Discord. He says, so it looks like the average player is already spending 40 to 70 hours just to get through the content that they currently have in No Rest for the Wicked now. And that's just for the campaign plus some of the endgame stuff, not considering new playthroughs and creating alt characters, trying hardcore characters, etc. We have some players that have already spent 200 to 300 hours playing since the game was last released, even more than that. I think that's pretty good value proposition for 40 bucks. I would agree to that as well. In fact, if I pull up my Steam playtime, I'm currently at 173.3 hours, and that number is only going to grow from here. Needless to say, I'm a fan, but anybody out there who's a parent knows that's actually a lot of time for us parents out there. I've got 6 kids, and yet I've managed to be able to put that much time into this amazing game. I think speaks volumes. And yes, it's a hell of a steal for $40. And in fact, if you can't fulfill the $40, if $40 is a lot, because I've been there, we've all been there. It's one of the reasons why I try to encourage you guys to really kind of take care of your finances and pay off your debts. No judgment. We've all been there. We've all kind of gone through it. Hang out on the live stream. We're giving away copies of this game. I'm hoping to get as many people into it as possible and thus support the devs along the way. I think it's absolutely worth it. So come hang out Saturday mornings, bright and early. We're having a blast. Anyway, he goes on to say, it also makes me think that regarding the future 1.0 and planned expansions, since I think it's a safe bet that we'll land at 100 plus hours just to play through 1.0, which means if we think far ahead to a point where Wicked is truly completed, we might end up with a game that you'll need to put 300 to 400 hours in to finish, unless we do some smart stuff where we allow expansion players to start with a preset character or something like that. Thoughts on all of that? On one hand, I'd love that we're creating an epic experience, and on the other hand, it could end up feeling too daunting for some players going on a journey, and that will take that much time to complete. And this is something that we've seen happen, especially the debate online. One of the coolest things about Wicked in my mind is that if you've ever heard the phrase, it gets good after 100 hours, well, then you know what I'm about to say actually carries a lot more weight. I've played those kind of games where they just continue to get better, and it can be easily expressed. It really gets good after a certain amount of time. Wicked gets good from the very second you start playing it. It also, in and of itself, gets better, and I really do have an appreciation for the systems and really hope for the future as they continue to expand it. But he raises an interesting question, one that the internet has constantly debated and multiple game publishers and developers have tried to solve in interesting ways. Fast tracking or skipping and jump potions. I don't think he's talking about that here. Mind you, they're not selling us microtransactions. So for those of you who are worried about this idea, they're not going in that direction. But I can tell you, those things cheapen the experience, and we all know it to be true. But as lightning will always find the fastest path that it can, electricity will take the shortest path that it can, humans aren't very different from that. And so when you introduce these kind of things, it just kind of almost de-incentivizes the journey. It kind of weakens it and waters it down. So I'm personally a mix when it comes to this, because there is balance. Now, what I did is I replied to this, and I'm going to share you guys with what I shared with Thomas. He also liked the tweet, so I guess hashtag winning. I've said, I've got a few thoughts. I love what Dragon Quest XI did with a previously on. Wherever you would get back into the game, it would give you a summary of what has happened thus far. Thus, if you end up taking a break, you can get caught up really quickly. And for those who haven't played Dragon Quest XI, if you set it down, you came back, picked it up a year later, it does give you that previously on. It gets you caught back up to speed, which I do appreciate as somebody with an odd gaming schedule. Gaming and hardcore gaming essentially becomes very seasonal for me. There are times in which that I can play. And there's times where I'm like, all right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. And you guys, if you've been following this channel for any period of time, you already feel that already. Now, I go on to say, now you've already talked about custom realms, and I think that honestly giving new players an option to have an accelerated path would be really cool. Again, option is the key word, where they could create their own realm. They could adjust various different factors of the experience they want, whether it's XP gain, movement speed, unlocking different pathways, etc. But it would be an option that you could even show them on the UI for them trying it out when we see expansion number 1, expansion number 2 to this game as well. That's their business model. Again, we talked about no microtransactions, but their business model is make a game, sell a game, and then expand on that. So whether they end up calling that No Rest for the Wicked 2, I honestly don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're just going to continue to build upon the foundation that we're playing right now, but I'll keep you guys in the loop on that. Anyhow, if they had that ability to control all of that, that would really kind of open that up. So you could have that option whether you want to start the new content and be good with it. I think the number 1 actually would be helpful for both of these situations. If you end up running through, or you take a break from Wicked and come back, I think the option number 1 would be a very big value to all players. Whereas in option number 2, that could be something that they maybe added the expansion. Anyway, I shared that. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this because this is something that is an interesting discussion topic, especially from gamer to gamer. Each of us have our own different life experiences, and I'm going to tell you right now, I don't view, especially if you disagree with me, that you're wrong. No, we just have a different of opinion, and I like to always kind of like hash it out. I think the fun of gaming outside of the gameplay is also the discussion that we can literally have on this channel. Speaking of which, welcome in to the 1,500 of you guys that have new faces this month alone. In fact, this last week, we've got over 244 of you guys new here to the channel. So again, welcome in everybody. It really does mean a lot to me. I opened up this video with the Wicked Daily kind of joke, bringing that back in. And yesterday, you noticed I didn't post a video on No Rest for the Wicked. And the reason and this is kind of my personal challenge to myself, is I'm not here to farm you for content. I want to bring some level of value to each and every one of you whenever you sit down to watch one of my videos, whether that's news, whether that's a guide, or whether that's the message of hope that we share at the end. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in today's message of hope. But the goal is to give you guys something really good and not to necessarily create videos just for the sake of creating videos. So I do appreciate those of you who do come back and check out these videos when I do post them. But note that that is always going to be something that I challenge myself to do. And I, always want to just encourage you guys, give me that feedback. I'm going to mess up. I'm human. But at the end of the day, I want to give you guys something good in your feed each and every day. Now, speaking of which, why you clicked on the video, let's dive into it. This is really cool. I'm sorry. Like I'm fanboying out here. Thomas starts it off. He's like, I heard some of you didn't like what we said about fast travel. I can give some updates. Continuing, so we're not going to do an immediate full fast travel right away. It is a full fast travel ultimately once you've literally upgraded every single whisper that exists. I think it's going to be fun to turn every whisper in Sakura into a golden whisper. That sounds really cool. But we will also allow players to warp from whisper to whisper. Players will have to upgrade their whispers to do this, though. It opens up a whole new box of magic. Now, Gaffa asks, is this going to have like IRL timers? And Thomas says, nah, it's going to actually be similar to the plague system, so we can actually probably do some pretty crazy stuff. He says that we're going to allow you guys to heal at whispers, spawn new enemies, bosses, increase or decrease challenges similar to bonafide aesthetics, or bonfire aesthetics, excuse me, we can allow players to modify the area they're in, and we can do all kinds of crazy stuff with this kind of system. Then when asked about, like, what are you talking about? Like, what is the upgrades cost going to include? And Thomas says everything. This is what gets me excited about this conversation right here. Is first and foremost, when it comes to upgrading, that like everything in my mind is like, yes, materials that we find in the world, all those materials are going to have value, which then ties into the multiplayer kind of aspect with player trade. We haven't even seen player trade brought in yet because we're all still waiting for the multiplayer update. Once all that's set in stone, this is going to be a real interesting thing. Value is going to be created in the various different things. You could literally just be somebody, if you wanted to, a woodcutter who sells their wares to players who maybe don't want to grind. And I think that's a real interesting thing, creating gameplay opportunities based off of just market economics and demand. And demand's going to be the key aspect here. So when it's all said and done, when everything is upgraded, you have all these things unlocked. Hopefully we also see something that can continue to fuel that demand for us, the players. Time will tell. I really am all in on it. Now, while Thomas was talking about all of this, several of the people in the community have asked some questions and he's got some answers. So a little dev Q&A here. Cobalt says, is there any boomerang type weapons in the game, like a chakram or, well, a boomerang? Thomas says, not yet, and it's not on the list for 1.0, but I mean, a boomerang does sound cool. Nito asks, surely Gordon is going to have a unique frying pan that we can fight Echo Knight with. And Thomas says, we'll 100% have a frying pan weapon. I mean, we have this now, and highlighting a meme talking about it's paddling time. And I've seen some builds and things like that. We might be doing an ore build here pretty soon. Regarding patch number 1, Thomas goes on to add in some additional context. He says, if we get lucky, we might just get a new enemy type for the pestilence system for patch number 1. And patch number 1 will also be called something else. So they're going to give it a name. As to what it means, I don't know. And I'm still hesitant that they're going to merge patch 1 with the multiplayer update, but honestly, the sooner they can get multiplayer, you're not going to hear me complain. And then Thomas goes on to say, we couldn't get it into the plague system anymore, into the breach update, but they do want, if you defeat a certain amount of plague bosses, they want there to be an ultimate plague boss for you to take out. Honestly, all some really interesting stuff. Personally, very excited for the future, and we'll keep you guys in the loop. Now, as we wind down, this is a request that came from the community. In fact, maybe we'll open up this section to various different questions that you guys have asked, whether it's life advice, if you're struggling with something financially, if you're, got some questions, if I can be of help. There we go. That's what this is for. Now, Big Mooser Gaming writes, hey Brian, any chance you could have a message at the end of the show on how to combat procrastination? I would love to hear your personal experiences and how you get past that mental block. Okay, so this is a real interesting topic because, like we all know, we're all built differently, our brains, and we process things. So there is essentially a risk, especially for those of you who are ADHD out there. And then there are those who aren't. So the things that I share, note that I'm going to try and kind of tackle kind of two different perspectives when it comes down to this. For me, and just speaking for myself, again, as a pro tip, if you're ADHD, body doubling. What that means, if you've never heard of this, is find somebody doing something and then just do the thing that you need to do with them in the room. It helps out dramatically. It's just how your body processes dopamine. Seeing people work tends to kind of do that. And then in a world where most of us maybe are remote, maybe we're a little bit disconnected, you can utilize the tools of the trade, things like YouTube. For example, if you're struggling cleaning your room or making your bed, you can put on a video of somebody just cleaning their house. That is a really good kind of hack that you can do if you're ADHD. For me, I am somebody who has to swallow the frog, meaning I do the hardest things first. If you put things off, and that's what procrastination is, you actually use so much of your own processing power and dread, and it actually has, it can have real negative consequences on you. Now, it's not to say that we can't all put things off from time to time, but if it does become that habit and you're struggling to get started, I do all the hard things first, right? Like if I need to work out, that's the first thing I do. I try to get my work done first thing. I try to do the things that I know that by the end of the day, especially when you're tired, that I don't want to do, I move them. Those are all the highest priority things so that things get done. The other aspect of it is that, and this maybe applies to people who are ADHD too, busyness, procrastination, especially like habitual procrastinators, they end up doing better when there's pressure on them. It's the pressure for those deadlines. So you could work to maybe artificially, accelerate the timeline. So if you're like, oh, I know I need to do it next week, you could say, I know I need to do it in the next 10 minutes. Oh man, I got to get this done, and then you focus in on it. Setting yourself up for success. Find the little things that work for you. So the ultimate question I would have you kind of ponder before we wrap up this video is, first and foremost, you do get things done. What are the scenarios that actually help you accomplish that? And if it's a matter that you just don't like, that you're just somebody who's finishing things always in the last minute, well, I mean, try to just adjust your schedule sooner to get that done. Find what solutions work, whether that's body doubling, because again, you might have ADHD and you just might not be diagnosed with it. And that's something a lot of adults have kind of found out. It's easy to get distracted. Take stuff off your phone. If you find I know on the iPhone, I don't know if Android does the same thing. They'll give you a screen time report. I guarantee you, when you start looking at your screen time report, you're gonna feel pretty silly at how much time you actually spend looking at your phone. Your phone is going to be your greatest time thief that has ever existed in all of human history so far. It has a way of sneakily capturing in so much of your time. For me, I tend to remove these apps. I look at the screen time report, see kind of where my time is being used. Like if I'm listening to YouTube, if I'm listening to a podcast, I do that while doing other things, right? But when it's all said and done, if I find myself spending too much time on Twitter or on whatever platform, well, it's time to maybe get rid of that app and get that freedom back to your time. And so the goal here ultimately to end on a word is intentionality. Shifting from chaos to intentionality is just going to be something we all have to work on. And it's not going to be something we perfect by any means, but again, becoming intentional. As a Christian, one of the things I really try to do is, instead of saying, hey, I'll pray for you, I'll stop what I'm doing and pray for you right then, right? Swallowing the frog is a key principle, because it's easy, once things in time has happened, there's going to be other things that happen in your lives. So the goal here, especially for all of us, is to be, I would say men and women, but my audience here is predominantly male, is men of intentionality. Like we say we're going to go do something, and then we have the integrity and we have the fortitude and we have the discipline that we go and do it. And when we don't, we learn. I don't want anybody sitting out there beating themselves up, feeling like they're not worthy or they're not good enough. No, guess what? Welcome to the club, guys. We're all like that. But you can kind of rewire. You can reset. You can do these things. And the key aspect is you better believe you can. Because whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Either way, you're right. I'd say believe in yourself and work and find what works and throw out what doesn't and test and retest and get radically curious about who you are. Because you're different. You're unique. That's one of the coolest things. But you're also infused with infinite human dignity. Anyway, I hope some of this was useful, Big Mooser, or anybody else out there listening. If you guys have any topics or things like that you'd like me to discuss, there you go. Open lines. Or you can come hang out on the podcast, on the live stream, which is kind of like an open mic podcast as well. Anyway, guys, I wish you guys all the very best. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.
Step in the circle, the fire's lit. Permadeath loaded, you ready for it? Broken blades and busted dreams. Blood on the D-pad, hear the silent screams. Health bar thin, heart rate thick. Boss fights dirty, that AI slick. One wrong move, that's